Shalom, John. Thank you for joining us.
Shalom, it's great to talk to you again, Ali.
I remember 5 years ago, I think it was in Edinburgh, you were standing on the stage talking to a big crowd of educators from around the world. And for a minute, you showed them, I think it was a robot in one of the East Asian countries, maybe Malaysia, and you showed a new technology that allows a computer to interact with children, to teach them, to react to their emotion. And it was a charming experience. The robot had lots of patience. The kids were very happy, not just with the innovation, but also with the interaction itself. And 5 years have passed since, and now we don't need to go to a remote area on the other side of the world. We can have an excellent machine teacher at the palm of our hand, personalized to our needs. And my question to you is, should teacher look for another job, or should they adapt somehow?
The AI, artificial intelligence revolution, is probably almost certainly the biggest change in my life. And it's going to have dramatic changes to how we work in schools, for better and for worse. And I'm a bit dismayed, Ali, about the number of places, including my own country, which have banned it. And we're not going to uninvent it. So we need to know how to use it. The hardcore reality is that virtually every child in Israel at school today will grow up and go into employment, probably alongside it with a computer of some sort. The days of going and working just with humans, it's not going to happen anymore. And it's going to have effects on certain jobs more than others. And you asked about teachers. My fascination at the moment is trying to understand what skills we need to teach our students and our teachers to better use the technology. For example, we need to teach how to ask probative questions. Because if you ask the wrong question, you get a result. And we're not very good at teaching kids to ask questions. We think it's our job to question students. We need to teach them probative questioning. We need to teach them assessment credibility. Is it right or wrong? We need to teach them evaluative thinking. Is it good enough? We need to teach them about collaborative critique, working with others to critique it. We need to teach them, and it's already happening now, that you don't need to write anymore. I can speak to these machines, it can answer me. Oral fluency is going to become very critical. But the one that I think is the most critical is the most different to all other technologies is that when you finish the task, I've been reteaching myself how to speak Spanish. At the end of the couple of hours of doing it, I say to the AI machine, given what I've done in the last 2 hours, what's the best thing I should do next? And it tells me.
Yeah.
We've always depended on a human for choices. Now, sometimes the choices it gives me are stupid, but sometimes the choices teachers give me are not so wise either. So how do you know wise choices? And I think my argument to your question, I think teachers are going to need to change dramatically what they focus on. We'll never not need a teacher to help us because we're human beings. We want the interaction. We want the critique. I have to know how I work with you, Ali, my teacher, and you might be a very strict disciplinarian. You may be a laissez-faire. I need to know how to do those things. And as I go through my school, I get about 50 of them. So I'm quite exposed to different kinds of interactions. We need that. But I do think it's going to ask us about how we look at the skills we need. And when you look at those 5 or 6 skills I mentioned, it makes those 21st century skills so antiquated. It's frightening. So I want to go one step further, though. Like in the US, 2% of adults use high school geometry, calculus, trigonometry, and algebra. 2%. 70% interpret graphs using Excel. I kind of don't care what the subject is, short of moral ineptitude. I want kids at schools to love learning and get a passion about getting mastery. And I think we have had too many years of deciding that the canon we're going to teach them is narrow. I would broaden it dramatically. And I'm delighted one of my sons had the opportunity when he was at school to really get into business mode and run the water polo. And I think it was his passion. And so I think that's what we're going to change. We're going to have to give up some of our cherished beliefs. It's going to affect our schools a lot because our current contingencies are on. You're more esteemed if you're a math teacher than you're the panel beater, teaching panel beating. Sorry, I want my panel beaters to be excellent. And so we're going to have to turn that on. So I think it's a very exciting opportunity. But I never underestimate the inertia in schools to keep doing what we do and frustrate the hang out of kids.
So you are entering into this debate of what to teach and learn these days. And there are many serious scholars of education around the world that claim that once technology can digest vast amount of data and do the basic routines, then humans are no longer in need to focus the teaching and learning in schools on acquiring knowledge or on
I don't agree with that. No,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. I think there is, like, for example, to make judgments about whether it's good or bad or right or wrong, you need to know stuff. So I don't think that computers will take over. It'll mean we may have to get better at mastering at depth and being problem solvers and not waiting for the machine to do it alone. We are still going to have to make judgments. Like when you use word processing, you still need judgment. When you go in and use ChatGPT or Claude or any of those, you still need judgment. And you still need a certain amount of knowledge to have that judgment. So no, I don't think it'll go away. I just think it'll be much easier to focus on the problem-based way of thinking. But novices do need knowledge.
We see the current revolution coming, and ChatGPT and Gemini and others are able to solve problems and to do all these skills that were left for humans because machines 20 years ago were able to do just the calculation, but now they can solve problems and recommend. So I hear from many scholars saying, okay, so knowledge is gone, skills are gone, but now it's all about social and emotional, and maybe we can do something that is more creative in that manner because everything else is being done by computers. I can see you laughing, so it means that
I don't agree. It's kind of ironic that we go to social and emotional when that's the very thing that computers don't have. But the other thing that I think is really critical here, Ali, is that the first effect positive it can have is actually not less on the kids and more on the teachers. Like I'm arguing here in Australia, why are we spending another dollar creating resources? I can go on and I can say, I'm teaching this book, this topic, these are the objectives, this is the Israel curriculum, this is the age group, this is what the kids can do. Give me a jigsaw exercise for 5 days, it will do it. Now, here's my point. If I did that, I would go and teach it. But when the machine does it, I look at it and say, I can improve that. So you're improving your lessons from a much higher base. I think that's really exciting. There's an incredible amount of work going on at the moment with some great solutions already in play about how you use the technology to do marking. Not just the marking that teachers do, but I can actually use the machine to detect, Ali, where you made an error, what the nature of your error is, and what was the thing that was best done next to kids who had the same error that improved them. You don't have the time as a teacher to do that. The technology, I think that's going to be the massive change. And I'm saying to my government at the moment and the countries, stop creating resources. It's a waste of time. Start improving. Start asking what the impact of these lessons are and get away from what every teacher does every night. Create lesson plans. Come on. It can have a dramatically positive effect. And my argument is that the more you can take that away from teachers and add value, the more you can focus on the teaching. Here's the problem. We do have this crazy notion that a good teacher is a busy teacher. And that's a real serious problem.
Bringing you into our local context, and that will be our final question for today. As you know, these are very challenging times in Israel. We're recording this interview towards a big gathering of Israeli educators, those that are in charge of shaping our future. What would be your message to this audience today?
I take the very strong view that we do not create a future for our students. They do. And so we have to, whilst we have them, give them the best possible experience of what it means to be a learner, what it means to be an interactor, how you can develop respect for self and respect for others, how you can work in an environment, and oh my goodness, yours is a very difficult environment, but it's kind of the norm to a degree. Like it's more intense lessons, how you can work in that, how you can work with people who have different views from you, how you can create the space to grow and make a difference. And that's what classrooms have to experience now, whether you're 5, 10, or 15.
If I don't know, is it safe in this classroom to say that? We have to create that, because that's the kind of environment we want our kids to grow into. They're going to experience that. If they experience learning as not a nice experience, that unfortunately is how they're going to see life. So my message to you is that right now, it's that sense of tolerance. You don't have to agree, but you do have to listen. I'm spending a lot of my work at the moment on the skills of listening. And I think that's the kind of skill that I want my children to have when they grow up. And so I think I'd be asking you is, what is the world that you want your children to grow? They're going to take over and they want to esteem an ideal and create that in your classrooms today.
Thank you so much, John, for these inspiring and important words. And thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Ali.